Okay, so this is basically the introduction to the animation pipeline, and the first thing is the preparation phase, which is not exhaustive, but it needs to be done. And like I mentioned at the end of the modeling portion of the videos, we do need to make sure that our scales are good before we rig anything, because we cannot scale in Max after the fact. It doesn't allow it. So what we're going to do is, first I want to get the this is the basic UDK. There's nothing going on here. Just going to bring up my content browser. I'm going to go to skeletal meshes here and try to find one of their, hit all assets, try to find one of those men here. The Liam cathode will do, as will the iron guard. So I can basically just say add skeletal mesh here. I can come in and zoom in on him and bring him up to the ground. I do want to offer my praise for this model. It's an absolutely fantastic model. Very awesome detail, but I'm not going to go spend any time on that. So now I'm going to go back to Max. I want to get my arms first. So let's just open up the arms, and yeah, I'll go ahead and save. And what I'm going to do is I'll just take the high-res ones. They have a material applied, but I'm not worried about that yet. And I'm going to export selected. Okay, and I want to keep everything in kind of the same place. So what I'm going to do is just create a new folder here called exports, and in that folder I'm just going to say tests, because what I'm doing is a test here. I need to do a scale test. So arm scale test, and I want that in ASE. Just hit save. Okay, you can pause here if you'd like. Check those settings. I'll go back to UDK. Bring up my content browser, which is Control-Shift-F. Just so you know, our character that's in our game is actually this guy here. If I add him into the world, he's a rat soldier. Okay. He's roughly the same scale. If I match the height of the head here, the legs pretty much hit the ground when they're straight. Okay, so when I made this, we went to match the scale that UDK had, because the physics seem to be tuned for this particular scale character. You can have much larger characters, but going much smaller, if a character was, already my clipping and stuff, but if a character was this tall as this guy's toe, you'd be having issues with your ragdolls and all that stuff. So keeping this rough same scale, and I believe the iron guard is also on the same general scale as all these. So these guys are all about the same size. Iron Guard's a little slight bit taller than the robot. Okay, but that's the scale that we're going at. So now I can come in here and just hit import and go back to where I exported everything. Okay, and go to my exports and tests and arm scale test. It might flag me some UV errors or something, but it didn't. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this package, and I'm going to put it in my project. You can put it wherever you want, but I am going to name this Glock tutorial. Okay, this package will have everything in it for you when you go to download it. Okay, so let me find where I put that. Let me just go arms here. Yeah. Arms, all assets, and find that arms test. Static meshes. Thought I named it. It's arms scale test. Okay. And I can just right click this and say find package. And it's not verified yet, so I guess I need to save. I guess maybe I didn't save it somewhere. I think I just made a... So there's a Glock tutorial there. It should have ended up in a... Yeah, it's actually right there. It did. I was able to find it. It's just my own dumb fault. So I'll just go fully load. There it is, so I'll highlight that. And I'll add that. And now what I want to do is just by eye. Oh, I'm so used to Macs. Come up here and see how those arms would fit. Now they're going to be about twice as big as my character. Let's see how big they are on the robot. Every time I hit that little zoom in, it's me trying to hit W for the move tool. You can see they're bigger than the robot character. And because I'm not actually including that much, I'm probably including about that much of the shoulder. You can see that they're roughly twice as big, so I need to scale them down to probably about 60%. If you know your units and you've modeled your character and you know everything's already set up, this isn't going to be a problem for you. But I just modeled these however. So I'm going to just change this to world and go for my center here. And I'm going to go to my percent snap. And I'm going to go down to 60%. And just hit reset, transform, and scale. Then I'll export that guy again. Yes, and OK. Go back to UDK. Bring up my content browser and just re-import it. I can close that, and you can see now that we're probably much closer to what we've got. The hand is obviously much smaller than the mitts that they put on these guys. I don't know about what world Epic lives in, but their characters are unbelievably built, muscular and huge and exaggerated, and it's a very awesome style, but it's not exactly normal. Okay, we might actually be able to go a little bit bigger than that to maybe 110%. I usually work this way, just kind of walk it in. Okay, 110%, and then reset the scale and export it again. I have a hotkey for that, by the way, which is Control-Shift-E, does export selected. Okay, now bring up my content browser with Control-Shift-F and re-import that. And it's now a little bit bigger. And I think that that's probably pretty good. Let's let's test it against my character. And unfortunately, my character is not a good test bed for lengths of arms because they have short arms done on purpose, because rats have short little front arms, and that's why it looks like that. Okay, so if the shoulder were about there, you can see that his arms are a little bit longer, but the general scale is good. And like I said, if it's off a little bit, you want to get this good as close as you can before you, like I said, before you start rigging. You do have draw scale that you can mess with, worst case scenario, but it's a good idea sometimes to, after you do your rig, to do a test before you spend an awful lot of time running through animations and things like that, to make sure that you're going to be able to get it in a good camera position and scale and everything, to make sure that it's all going to sit well. So with these arms scaled good, now I'm going to save this scene. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Glock model static, and now I'm going to do a import merge. There's two ways to actually get to the options here. I don't know if I ever mentioned this. See, I got an arrow here. I can either click that arrow and it automatically brings that stuff up, or I can just kind of wait for a second. Okay, and then those options come up. So I'm going to go merge, which lets you bring objects in from another max file, and it'll bring up a little list and let you choose which particular meshes in there do you want to bring in. And I actually don't want to do that. I want to bring in the arms. Import merge arms base, and I want the either one of them really. And I'll just use the scene material. Okay, so instantaneously, if I take that and rotate that 90 degrees, you can see that the gun is just absolutely huge compared to the arms. Okay, actually these arms need to be facing that way. Forward in the X is the way you want to go. Everything is X forward, Z up in UDK. Okay, they're at the 0 mark, I think. Yeah, if I go to view, they're centered at the 0 mark. So now I want to scale the gun to match the size of these arms so that they fit well in there. And it's quite easy. Just Control A. I don't want the grip, I don't want the arms, and I want to link everything to that grip. And now I can take this and move it all. So temporarily I'm gonna rotate it and then I'm just actually going to go over this way, 180, and I'm going to stick it right about there in his arm. And now I'm going to scale from all axes by hitting the dead center triangle here. I don't want to do it in just that. I don't want to do it in just that. And I definitely don't want to do it in just that. I want to hit all of them. And just kind of eyeball it from here. And then move it into position under his palm here. And using the top view, just want to see how easy is it going to be to get his thumb around it. I think I'm a little big still. If I were to take this finger and swing it around this way, it's actually very close. Okay. It's very close. It might even be perfect. It will be easier for me to do this once I've got the hands rigged and I can actually pose them. I can bring this down and whatnot. But for now, I'm just going to make it just a hair smaller to ensure that if it was this back here is supposed to hit this web. So if I match the angle of the gun and put that there, how much of the finger, because usually a trigger you can easily wrap your inner first knuckle around that trigger, so I feel like I'm still a little big. And let me match that angle some. And now I feel like I'm a little small. The gun in the top view is going to be roughly like that. You want to see the thing is I don't, like I said, I don't have a Glock. I don't know how far below my palm would it actually go. Right now it's pretty much the same distance as the palm. Now if I want to make sure that the pinky finger doesn't loop, start going up behind the gun, I do actually need to make it a little bigger. I'm just trying to eyeball this, and there's no method to my madness here. I'm just trying to see what looks better. And it looks like now that I can, doesn't matter which way I rotate or anything, I'm gonna reset that. It looks like that's pretty good because that's gonna let my pinky get to the bottom of the gun if the gun's about there. Okay, when the pinky bends in this way, it'll be pretty much right on the end there. And it doesn't look like the gun is huge in his hand, whereas like that is just obviously a giant gun, right? I mean, compared to that hand. This might feel a little compact, so I'm just going to give it a little bit more weight to it, make it a little bit larger. If you are making your own model, you need to size this to your hands. If it's a gun that exists, go ahead and take measurements. The units for UDK are listed on the forums and the documentation and whatnot. I'm not going to corrupt your knowledge of that by making an incorrect guess. Except I do want to say that I think that it's 1 for 1 if you're using generic units, 1 unit in max, 1 unit in UDK. So if you go by units and all that stuff, then you should be okay. And it looks like this is pretty good in the hand. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it back to 0 and rotate it back to 0 so it's facing down the X. And now he's got a little gun face. And I believe that my scale is okay. I do want to come here and say reset scale. Okay? Oh, actually, sorry, before I do that, I need to break my linking. Then I can reset scale. If you don't do that, it doesn't actually reset your scale. It resets the scale on the base object, but everything else is still in relation to that, so it comes out at some random number. So just double check a couple items and make sure that your scale is staying at 100. Okay? When this is scaled down, you can see it 52.371. Alright? Want it to be 100. So if you scale it down and you want to lock it in at 100, you need to hit reset scale. If you don't, UDK will not actually take that scale. It will, when it goes to export it, it will export it at whatever size it is at 100%. Okay? So just keep that in mind. So now, that is pretty much all of the prep that we needed to do. We needed to get the scale right. Without doing that, we were going to be in a lot of trouble when it came to running our animations and things like that. And now I just want to make a note. The arms are symmetrical. I look at my grid here, but they're not exactly in line. You got to keep in mind that what happens is your camera, if you want to do this in relation to your camera, let me hide this. Your camera is actually here at 000, unless it's moved in the code. And your shoulders, put your head about here. So these actually need to come down, and what I'll do real quick is I'll affect the pivot only, just real quick, and say 0. What we did in our game, this is just in our game, your games could and probably will be different. We decided to move everything down 3 units, which is not a lot. Okay, your head would still be way up here. However, it did give us good position on the arms when we went to view it. If I save as here, and I'm just going to name this scaling, okay, and I take a look at something that I know has been working for a long time. Such as this Beretta, and I go to idle. You can see that our arms, for my little rat guy, see how it's moved down in -3 here, and then exported. Okay. To bring that below the camera, and you can see where my camera is. It's right there. Okay. If I look through my camera, you can see that's the view that I get. Alright. I won't go into this too much yet, because I'm going to cover all of this when I actually go to run these animations. But we moved it down 3 because it lined up better in the camera, in the view for the camera. So I moved this down 3. Then what I can do is I can just put the pivot back up to 0. And what we want to do is just unhide all. And what's going to happen is the arms we're actually going to rig with bones. Max bones, okay? Just want to explain this really quick because it's important. The arms are going to be rigged with bones. However, the gun is going to be rigged with pyramids, and I'll show you why. There's a major difference. If I create bones here, okay, just go to my last thing here, systems, just select bones, and then basically you just start drawing out bones. Okay, that's really huge, so I'm going to just go 0.1 and 0%. Oh no, it's my width. So just go 2 by 2 and untaper. Okay, so I'm just going to draw out a simple chain of bones. Okay. Now what happens is if these are already automatically linked, we change this to local, and I rotate. Anything down the chain goes with it. It's got a hierarchy to it. Okay. However, what happens is these are just simply linked. If I try to move this bone, see what it does? I can't go. I'm dragging my mouse way down. I can't move it away. It's because if this were your elbow and this were your bicep, I try to move it forward, it doesn't go anywhere. This were your, like I said, if this were a creature, the bones don't separate. And it's a pain in the butt to actually get them to separate if you want them to. Say I wanted to shoot, say this was not a person, it was a robot, and this was the hand, and I wanted an attack where this shoots forward and backwards and comes off of the wrist, or I wanted it to move, where the hand moves inside the arm, and then a big old cannon comes out in place of it. I can't. Okay. Well, let me show you the difference. And it's good, like I said, it's good for characters, so we're going to use it for the arms. But if I make pyramids, okay, and then I scale that up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alt-A, just going to affect the Z, and I'm going to go the minimum of this to the maximum of that. I'm just going to uncheck that. Okay, so it's a little bit of extra step you got to do. So I can take that it's obviously easier to draw out bones than it is to create a chain of pyramids. Okay, and then I need to hand link these, so I'll just go 1, 2, 3. I still maintain my hierarchy. Okay, I can still rotate all the children along with the parent, but the difference is I can move it wherever I want. So if this was a robot's arm and I wanted to shoot the arm off, kerplow, right in the enemy's face. Just punched him right in the face from across the room, and I didn't have any issues, and I can have it come straight back. Okay, but you can't do that with bones. So the reason that we do that, use pyramids for our weapons instead of bones, is so that if this bone was controlling the slide, I could have it go, you know, back and forth like that, and it's not going to mess up. Whereas if this was a slide, and I tried to move it back, look, you know, it doesn't do it. So UDK and the PSK and PSA exporter have absolutely no issue whatsoever using these as bones. What I don't know, which I've never really tried, is whether or not you can actually have hierarchy, IK on a chain of pyramids, which you can. So in some ways there's almost no reason to use bones, but we do use them for characters, because there's tools that are handy dandy, and for the most part, like I said, unless it's a robot or something weird, mechanical thing, you don't want this to be able to come off of here. If I say I had bones and I say, okay, well this has to come off, my only option is to actually give myself a control object. Okay, take this guy, make a link constraint to it, which can mess things up, but now I can move it around. But what we get is this crazy glitch where if you see the root bone is shrinking and unshrinking, and it looks like it's scaling. In reality, it's not. It's just the if I look at the scale, it's still 100, 100, 100. It's really not doing that at all. It's just visually in max, and it's been doing this since version 8, and it's propagated out through version 12. I mean, that's 5 versions or so that they've never changed this. If you constrain modify a bone to a control object, could be a dummy or a box or anything, whatever that this was linked to takes on this absurd scaling, I guess, to say, okay, well, I'm trying to maintain a connection or something, but it only does it in the length of the bone, and it can freak you out. It freaked me out a couple of years ago when I first noticed that it was doing this. I was like, what's going on, and I started exporting weird stuff and breaking my character apart, trying to figure out why this is happening. And then in the end I realized, it's really not doing anything. It's really not doing that at all, so if I I'd have to undo all this to get it back to where it was. And the other thing is that this is when you do that link constraint, you saw what happened. I mean, it flew off of it in the beginning because it whatever its offset from the 0 point got taken over to there. So that's the reason why, because bones can be a mess when you need to start moving things off of them. And with a weapon, we definitely need this slide to move. It's a sliding joint. It's not rotating. Okay, we don't do this. That's all you can do with bones. Okay, we make a propeller out of it, make a fan, but that's it. So, just wanted to explain the difference between objects and bones as bones, and objects as bones, because we're going to be putting that into play. And the other thing I just want to point out is that what we're going to be doing, the method that we're going to be using for our whole system, is something that we got working, that we're actually proud of, because it works good. We socket our weapons into the hands of our characters, and we attach them in script, and that allows us to use one set of arms, okay, and then we can put any gun we want in the game onto them. And what we do is we create an actual pyramid that's linked to the hand, and then when we go into UDK, we create a socket for it. So if I show you really fast on this, it's a static. Okay, it's opening down here. Okay, I've got this rat here. He's a Nazi rat. Okay. You can see in his hand, if I look at the actual name of the skeleton, this is going to be pretty hard to determine, but you can see this word socket right here. There's the wrist bone is right here, but there's also there's a socket bone that is there too. And if I go to my socket manager, I have a weapon socket that's attached to this bone named B_weapon socket. You can see the relative location and rotation is all zeroed out, and I have a preview mesh of this Mossberg weapon. But all I got to do is go to my weapons, and we're doing this in code. When you switch guns and stuff, you just say, okay, I want the one player mesh here. Is I can come here and just say, okay, even though this is just a preview, you can see I put any gun I want in his hands. Okay? And if I play some of his animations by going to his anim set, which is here, this is gonna I get a little confused as to where our animations and stuff are. Okay, we actually have an anims folder here. Okay, let me just show these sergeant animations. This is just our regular character. Okay, it's previewing the gun in his hand, and it's doing this salute. Okay, and if I play this animation, you can see that it's following his hand. Okay? When he walks, it's following his hand. We have this little test preview here, don't ignore that. Okay? Okay? So it's stuck on his hands. And if I change the animation to be M16 3-player soldier anims, you can see that the animation itself just aligns it up so that it's fitting in his hands. And it's exactly in the same position in relation to that socket. And now, under any one of these circumstances, okay, it's working. Alright, just boom. All of them. It's going to stay in his hands. Okay? And that's 3-player, but our first player is exactly the same thing. It's just the arms. It's the only difference. There's no difference in the skeletal mesh and animation or anything like that. In fact, when I created my arms, I literally cut the mesh off, and then I deleted the rest of the skeleton, and I was done. That's it. Okay? So, like I said, we're happy to be doing that because it works out really well. And that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do, because I'm pretty sure that that's what Paul's system's going to be, because we did decide to just do this the way we've been doing it, and what works works. So we'll show you how to set up a socket bone here that you can use in code to attach your weapons to, and then I'll show you how it goes on my end of how the animations need to be. Because one of the things that's important to note is if I go back, just this is a little important too. let me just go to animation sets to characters, and let me fully load this whole folder really quick. Okay, animation sets. Actually, the animation sets for each weapon are in the weapon. So let me show you this. We'll just do this on this UMP P here. Okay, the UMP one player arms anims. Okay, you can see there's no weapon in his hand right now because I'm not doing a preview mesh. However, if I pick up the one player preview mesh and I just go to a little socket manager here, I can just slap that in, and there it is in his hands. Now, one of the things to note, because we're doing this separately, that if I show the reload animation, this is just a solid object that's previewed in his hand. So if I play it, he tries to take the mag off, but the mag doesn't go anywhere. Okay, if you see that there, and that's because in preview it's not going to work. You know, it's just putting that skeletal mesh there. So I actually have separate animations, and I call them one-player gun animations, UMP, one-player gun animations. Okay, and that will bring up the weapon. And what I've done is I've exported an animation separately, and if you look at the reload here, that's where the mag comes out. And it happens at the same timestamp that he goes to grab it. Okay, I don't really need to confirm that because I know it's working. Alright, so if I hit play, it plays a little cocking sound, but I don't think I have it set up to play for you to hear my sounds. Okay, so this is a separate entity, and you can see I've got a fire animation, and the gun doesn't really move. Okay, you can see here, if I can get some better lighting, that when I scrub this animation, the trigger moves and the latch moves. Okay, and if I play it and loop it, okay, every time it fires one shot, that's all that happens. But if you look at it on the arms, when I play that firing animation, look what happens to the gun. You see what I'm saying? The gun follows that arm socket, and then simultaneously it plays the animation on the weapon, which pulls the trigger. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but his finger is pulling that trigger, and when this plays together in the game, it actually plays together. So we call animations on the arms and on the gun at the same time in this method, and what it means is we don't have to have a set of arms exported for every single weapon that we possibly could have in the game, because that's how I was originally doing it. I just exported the arms with the gun, and I animated it that way, and it was relatively easy. But then when I got to the point where I was finally ready to put a second weapon in the game, it's like, well, now I got to put the arms on that gun too. That sucks. You know, that's not a good workflow. You know, now every single one of my weapons has all this extra polygons in them, and I can't do as good of a budget here. If I could just get the arms separately and just somehow attach the guns to the hands, then I'm going to be in great shape. And we did figure that out, and we're going to take you through how that's done on both the art side and the animation side. So this is going to be pretty useful for those of you that have are having trouble getting your stuff in the game. We've got it working quite well now, down to the point where we've literally got it pipelined. There's no more experimenting or guessing. It's now just do. Okay, when we're ready for the next weapon, we stick it in. I hand it over. It gets coded, and it works, and it's great. So that's what I'm going to be taking you through in terms of setting everything up, and I gave you through a little bit of preparation here. And once again, I want to mention that if you do donate, you will get all of these assets coming right out of this. Oops, I'm going to give you package that I end up with, okay, which is somewhere right here. So I'm just going to save that, and this is going to end up having anim sets, meshes, textures, materials, a bunch of stuff in here that you can just plug and play, and then you'll have the scripts too. So, and obviously we're free to answer any questions if you email us or write on our forums at ratsarmy.com. If you have problems getting anything to work or problems with your own stuff, we're always willing to help anybody that needs it. Okay, we've gotten help from everybody in the past, and we like to pass that buck. So, in the next video, I will. I keep wanting to close this. I'm going to keep that open. In the next video, I will start rigging, and I'm going to start with the arms, and then we will move on to the gun.